Hello, everybody. Welcome to Take a Stand. My name is Reverend Diane Dougherty, and you are listening to the WCEG network. That is WCEG Talk Radio. You can find us at WCEGTalkRadio.com, the Worldwide Community Empowerment Group. You can also follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram at WCEG_talk_radio. Call in tonight or Skype us at 678-918-1902 and join in the great conversation we are going to have with our wonderful guest, the great Shawnna Hayes-Tavares, who is a parenting coach at the present. We are just excited to have you here, Shawnna.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
And one of the things I absolutely love is when you sent me your bio. At the bottom of it, you wrote what Jackie Onassis said, "I'm going to keep it forever." If you bungle raising your children, nothing else really matters. If you're not at the table, you're on the table. Isn't that true? For all parents. So I'd like to introduce you to all listeners to Shawnna. Shawnna has over 20 years of experience working to build strategic partnerships in the community. This woman is an incredible community supporter, and I'm so honored to just know her. If I had $1 million, I would give it to her because she is an incredible advocate for public education. She's a graduate of Wilberforce University with a BA in Mass Communications and a master's in Georgia State University in psychology. But her claim to fame are her 4 children.
Yes.
As we were waiting to come on, she was talking about how she got involved in the Atlanta Public Schools because when she had her kids in the school, she went with her kids to school. And she just didn't sit by idly, expecting the school to do what she wanted done with her kids. Since that time, she's held numerous parent and community positions, including she PTA president. She was the vice president of the local school councils. Are you listening, Amber?
Yes.
Parent liaison, and she led numerous community chairs.
Yes, thank you.
Just a minute, I forgot I should introduce you also to our wonderful guest, Joe Flint, who has a program. Hi, Joe.
Hello. Great to be here this evening with you, Reverend Diane.
He is here because he got his dates mixed up, and we call that a happy fault.
Absolutely.
So this is great. And we have Amber. Amber is Miss Penny's niece.
Autumn, yes,
Oh,
it's okay.
Autumn, Amber.
It's okay.
I beg your pardon.
It's okay.
I'll do that again. Sorry about that. Autumn. So we're going to have a great show. As I was going over your bio, one of the things that struck me was how much work you have done in your life. And as you go back and list all of those things, one could get tired. Tell us a little bit about how you built up your capacity.
You know, Reverend Diane, there's no work, what they said, no, there's no rest for the weary. For me, building up the capacity was just really evolving into parenthood. It really wasn't intentional. I didn't decide this is what I want to do, this is how I want to do it. When you're there and you're around children and you see their needs, whether children are reading on grade level proficiency, whether they appear to be unkept, whether the teachers are, showing love and support of the students. It was just an evolution of that. It really wasn't anything intentional. I didn't start off like that. I just started being involved and engaged. And when they said, Who wants to do that? I would always raise my hand. Well, I'll do that. Why not? And as a result of that, I've learned so much, and I've been able to be apt to advocate for other folks who feel disenfranchised, feel like they have no voice. I feel like my voice will help them. I am every parent. I have boys, I have girls, I have special needs, I have talented and gifted. I've been a parent with a maid. I've been a parent without electricity. So I am every parent. I represent parents. I know what they go through. So I think that's what I do. I just help parents and I help students, and hopefully that'll be better. I always say, who will my children marry? Who will they live next to? Who will they go to school with if I'm just only focused with just my 4 children? I have to know, because to me, it does take a village to raise a child. I know that's used a lot, but it really is true.
One of the things I admire about you is that you never left APS.
No, I did not leave.
You
APS.
stuck. This is your home.
Yes.
And you are really sticking to it. I met Shawnna at I think the first time at the Capitol.
Yes.
When you organized a Capitol Day. Tell
Yes.
everybody about that.
So I've been doing this for lots of years. For me, I think that it makes a lot of sense for parents and community to be aware of the legislation that impacts our local schools.
Amen, sister.
And nothing was happening. I've been at the Capitol for many, many years. I've organized lots of events and worked with them over many, many years. But what I thought is that right here in the city of Atlanta, I didn't often see folks from Atlanta in the Capitol. I would see folks from Savannah and Albany and Macon. I was like, well, it's up the street. It's walking distance. And so what I decided to do is 10 years ago now, is to started to do what I called a legislative reception, which was to demystify the process of the legislative process. We would get legislation, laws, and policies, and parents wouldn't understand, and they would complain to maybe the Board of Education or superintendent, but I would have to say to them that this came from a higher power and not our creator, but a higher power, meaning the state legislature. And so we had to be able to learn how to advocate on behalf of educational legislation.
That was the first time I met the Secretary of Education.
The superintendent, yes.
Or superintendent.
And he always comes. This is before that it was John Barge. So this was my ninth one. And then for 5 years, Richard Woods has been in attendance there every single year, because to me, we need to talk to the hierarchy of education in the state of Georgia. And so that's what that was about, bringing those folks, bringing legislators there. So parents and people in community will know that these are regular folks, and that what I found throughout the years is that they learn how to speak to their legislators. For one, they learn who their legislators were.
Actually, it was really good because
Yes.
everybody spoke.
That's right. And we had different levels. We had someone from the local level, which was Atlanta Public Schools, and we had someone from the State Board of Education. Then we had Richard Woods, who's the State Board of Education superintendent. And we had a couple legislators also come in and out throughout
And
the day.
APS.
And APS, yes, Candace Wood Jackson.
Candace Wood Jackson.
was our local person.
Yeah.
And people got a chance to go up to the
And who's the
chamber,
guy on
pull
the
folks
end,
up.
the
That was
Democratic?
Kenneth Mason. He is the State Board of Education
State Board
member
of
for
Ed- that's
Congressional 5 District. So each of the congressional districts has a representative appointed on the State Board of Education. However, no one knows that. No one knows them. And so I started pulling Kenneth Mason out of that seat into the community. And so from that point, he's come lots and lots of times. We've done a student town hall with him. He did his event where they have to show the budget. So I try to make sure that parents are informed, they're educated, and they're empowered. That, for me, is really critical.
When we talk a lot, I know there's a big article about income inequality in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And for those listeners who don't know it, Atlanta has the highest income inequality of any state in the nation, of any large city in the nation.
Yes, it does.
I think what you're doing, I think there's also an legislative inequality in which the schools no longer really teach civics.
Oh, God.
And they really do not understand democracy or forms of governments.
So true.
Yes, and that opens up a huge chasm for others to come and manipulate the democratic system. So I really honor you for doing that.
Well, thank you so much. And just on to your point, Reverend Diane, is that for the schools, the students who go through high school, they have to have 4 credits of math, 4 credits of science, and 4 credits of English language arts. They only have to have 3.5 credits of social studies. What I've been trying to advocate for several years is to demand that they also have 4 credits, but that half a credit will be about civic engagement.
Absolutely,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes.
And one of the things I learned at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas kids is that they had for their APS, what do you call the higher level courses? AP courses.
Or IB.
They had a teacher that taught them civics and that made them talk and that demanded that they had, and the speeches that they gave it during that time were speeches they were supposed to give in class. And they had them all prepared, but they didn't expect this tragedy to happen.
She did some great things, brought those students to the Capitol. As a matter of fact, I did an event there probably 10 years ago, and we had the students come and speak about issues. They chose an issue and they spoke about it. It was phenomenal. However, a lot of folks, young folks, don't know, aren't aware, don't know to register to vote and then to vote, because we kind of have, and maybe some people might not appreciate this, but an ignorant electorate. And when I say that, ignorance just means not knowing, is that they vote for people who send them little cards in the mail. They vote for people whose name they've seen a few times who say, hey,
I know, I'm guilty. I have done that.
But they don't know their policies, and they don't know if they're really there to harm us. And so what we do is we keep putting people in office who are not for us. They do not have a people agenda. And we continue to do that because oftentimes they may look like us. They may be our agenda. But that is not enough for us to put them in office and say that they are going to be advocating for our agenda. That is just not enough. And so we need to be able to educate our constituency so that they are no longer ignorant electorate, and that we're actually electing people who are for us, by us, and they're going to be about us.
Oh, okay. Imagine that.
Imagine that.
When we were at the Capitol, my friend went to the lobbying conference. They have she just went in. She's not a lobbyist. And she just sat there and watched. And she said she was absolutely astounded at the number of lobbyists that participate in the Georgia legislature that are paid by higher order organizations to write the bills and to get them passed. I wouldn't know how to write a bill. Do you know? Have you written a bill?
I have not written a bill, but I have been instrumental in having 2 bills passed.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh,
yes,
my
ma'am.
gosh.
The human trafficking bill that we first had passed in 2009, 2010, we had worked on that for over 10 years.
Wonderful.
Because they were criminalizing young folks that were 13 and 14 years old, instead of understanding that this is human trafficking, this is not prostitution. Right. And so those young folks were being criminalized, sent to jail, juvenile, and the Johns were getting a slap on the hand and moving on to their way. And so there were a lot of things done in the city of Atlanta with Shirley Franklin, the Dear John letter, but we also did a lot of things with A Future Not a Past, which was to make young ladies understand that that was their past, this is their future, and they're not criminals because some adult was irresponsible in raising them. And so I've been at the Capitol for that. Also last year, excuse me, I'm very proud of the fact that I worked on Raleigh's pathway for over 6 years for the deaf, hard of hearing. My youngest son is deaf, hard of hearing. And so I became an advocate for special education. One of my organizations is CASE, Community Advocates for Special Education. But we worked for 6 years to pass legislation that passed last year so that we're in contact. And Georgia's really disjointed. A lot of the health department is not working with the physicians, who's not working with the schools. And so this bill allows sort of that crossover kind of intersection so that we can make sure that children who are deaf, hard of hearing get what they need early on in the universal screening process, in early preschool, babies, those things. 0 to 3rd grade is what we ask for, so that they're reading on grade level proficiency by 3rd grade. So I'm very happy about that.
We made progress in Georgia.
Yes.
We really have. And one of the big problems I have with so many of these lobbyists or people that have other agendas is that they create problems that are non-existent in order to achieve their own goals and put money behind it, tricking and misleading. They're misleading constituency. I'd like you to talk a little bit about the Atlanta public schools, because you've got a front row seat.
Yes.
Before I get to my question, tell everybody a little bit about what you do with the many advocacies that you have. You talked about the classroom. Now we're going to move up to the next level, beyond the classroom into the school board.
So that it is a total evolution, and certainly it took 20 years to come to these levels.
Listen to that, listeners.
It
20
takes
years.
time. It takes time because you're learning, you're growing, and you start to do different things. So for me, I'm a product of Atlanta Public Schools first and foremost. I graduated from Walter F. George High School, which no longer exists. It's now merged, and that's another name. But the building is still there, and the location is still there. So I'm very proud of that. So I am involved with my alumni as well. And then what the ultimate goal was putting 4 human beings in the Atlanta Public School system. Okay, we've gone to 13 different schools in Atlanta Public Schools, which also has helped my learning, has helped my education, and has helped empower me in a lot of different ways. And so first and foremost, it's my children, having 4 children there in the school system. Starting off at West Manor in elementary school with my daughter, seeing how the need of parents was there and needed to be there. And so I just became that kind of parent. Every time they asked me for something, who wants to do that, I volunteered. Whatever was happening, I went to all the meetings. After a while, they're like, why are you still at the meetings? Because you know everything. But for me, if you stop learning, you might as well die. And so I always continually learn. There are things that I wouldn't have known. And so when you're advocating for the people who are making decisions, you realize when you're doing it that it's not the teachers, really. No, they're not making the decisions.
That's right.
The principals may be carrying out the decisions that are made. They're not really making the decisions. So I had to keep going and say, okay, who is actually making the decisions? And that's how I ended and landed it with the Board of Education. And I learned about them in 2001. I was like, who are these folks who are supposed to be the governance of my schools that I don't know? Had never seen them. Had to call and keep calling down. Who is my board member? What's going on? What are they doing on the southwest side of town? So my side of town, there was nothing going on. They had totally ignored and disrespected the parents and the community over there, particularly after desegregation. A lot of folks moved out of the community. A lot of folks went to schools outside of the community. And so when they disinvested, the school system and the city disinvested in those particular areas. And so it was not hard to find a cause, if you will.
That's right.
But because you stayed put.
That's right. I stayed put. Now, my children went to 13 different schools, all in Atlanta Public Schools.
Oh, my God. Now, remember, she has 4 children.
4 children in different schools. Now, for me as a parent and some parent, I think I'm the very first parent of choice. I believe that I'm going to pick the school, public school, in my community, as close to my community as possible, to find the right fit for my children. So in the earlier years, we just stayed at the schools there. And then I started saying, well, why aren't my children? And then I started going to this school. And I was like, oh, they're starting orchestra in the kindergarten. What? Well, when I go to this school, we don't start to the 4th grade. This one has Spanish every day of the week. This one has it 20 minutes a week. So I started seeing the disparities and inequities of Atlanta Public Schools. So after you could see that, beyond the child in the classroom who's not reading on the grade level proficiency, beyond the teacher who may or may not have been given the level of love and support that child needed, beyond the parent, whether they were engaged or not. Most parents are engaged in surviving. Beyond all those things, what I realized is that there was some legislation that was happening here. And these are the things that created. So systemically, if I have to now address the system, individual people are just individual people.
That's correct.
Now we have to go to the system. Who are the ones over the school system? First, the board members, because guess what? There are employees, right? We hire them to run the board. Their one employee is the superintendent. So she answers to them, they answer to us. Now we're starting to understand the hierarchy here. Now, the problem with that, though, Reverend Diane, was that the board members and the superintendent didn't understand the hierarchy.
I was just going to tell you, we need to expand on that. And
That's right.
Look at
She
Beverly
runs
Hall,
them.
go back
That's
to
right.
Beverly Hall.
That's
and
right.
They
I
all
walked in the
ran
door with
them.
Beverly Hall.
Yeah.
That's right. And if you look at the org chart, if you're on Atlanta Public Schools one day, you're browsing and say, I'm going to find the organizational chart. Okay? And I pull it up and I do it in all my workshops and I show the parents that they are empowered because at the top of it says the public.
See?
It says public.
Listen, everybody.
Then it says Board of Education.
Who's in charge of public education?
Exactly. The public. The public is in charge of public education.
But we don't have any lobbyists.
Right. No, we don't have lobbyists. No, we don't. But we have to become advocates.
Yes.
To get it right.
Yes.
You know, and to make sure, again, that we're talking for and on behalf of the disenfranchised.
What
and the
about
voiceless.
Roland Martin saying black choice is school choice?
Oh, Roland Martin, please don't. Reverend Diane, we want to keep it nice.
I know, but I mean, this is what we have.
Walk my dog.
The public is in charge of education. And then you have someone like this TV personality coming in and say your choice, public, is school choice, which is not public schools.
It is not. And he's just unfortunately being bought and paid like a whole lot of folks, which is why.
But it's also the same thing with the school board.
Yes.
If you have the superintendent that believes that they do the superintendent's bidding, then you flip the chart.
That's right. And the superintendent, from Dr. Hall to Dr. Kostarfin, has shown us who is really in charge.
How many
Be
years?
clear on that.
How many years?
Dr. Hall was in office from 1999 until 2011, right?
20
When Errol
years.
Davis came up. Well, not quite 20 years, but a long time.
11 years.
Errol Davis then came right at 12 years. Errol Davis came, supposed to be an interim, ended up staying for 3 years. And Dr. Kostarfin's been there now since April 2013, and now it's 2019. And the school system, as she even says in her own words, she says that 88% of the students aren't reading on grade level proficiency, okay? She has given away over 6 schools now, 7 schools to charter operators. And if you read the papers, you'll know that it's really not clear if those things are really working. We had 58 schools involved in the cheating scandal, 256,000 wrong to right erasures, 178 educators, with over 10,000 students impacted by that. This is a huge load here. And if the public's not engaged in this process, this is why our children were able to be cheated. This is why years later, they still aren't really getting all the support in which they need. We've had about $5 million thrown at this thing. I'm on a Target 2021 advisory committee for Atlanta Public Schools. Of course, they had no choice but to put me on there because every month I talked about those children who were cheated on behalf of in the school system, which we know there's a school to prison pipeline.
Exactly.
So those children, a lot of those children have dropped out of school, have gone to juvenile, have gone to adult jail at this point. Paul Howard and ADA Willis has the data on that to tells us that these children, not only were they cheated in the education, they're now being cheated in life. And they're going to come back to haunt us. And every time we go out into our cars, we better watch out. Because this is what happens when we don't take care of our children.
Absolutely.
They become adults who come back and haunt us.
Amen, sister. This is
Amen.
preaching. This is the sacrament of voice.
That's right. They
Voice
don't
of
come back,
sacrament.
you know?
They're going to come back.
I want to add, if you don't mind,
Please, this
Brother
is-
Diane. So, first of all, so good to see you. It's
Good to
been
see you
so
too,
many
Joe.
years.
Yes.
But I don't know if it was the first one, but I definitely know that I was there at the Capitol, and you had me as one of the speakers that day for advocating for education, public education. And I'm a firm believer. I'm a product of Atlanta Public Schools. My children are products of Atlanta Public Schools. I don't believe any other school system works best than public schools. I've never been a believer that any other school works better than a public school because I know so many who are great in our world who are products of the public school. But I want to add to that statement concerning, how the superintendent is actually in charge rather than the board itself is in charge. And going back really to the whole cheating scandal, I can think of, and of course I wouldn't name any of their names, but many principals leaving from their meetings with the superintendent at the time, Beverly Hall, being threatened for their jobs.
That's right.
Because if they don't pass, the students don't pass this test, and you won't have a job tomorrow. That's not the type of rhetoric that a superintendent should have on their leaders.
That's right.
But that's the type of rhetoric that Atlanta board members allowed to take place for 12 years under Beverly Hall. And unfortunately, it's the same type of rhetoric that's taking place now under Kostarfin.
Right.
I don't know that Errol Davis had a lot of input, but what I will say is that Atlanta Public Schools superintendent makes nearly $400,000 a year.
Does
You can't-
$500,000
to
superintendent
include
Kostarfin.
all of her incentives and things
That's
that go
more.
along with
It'll be
that.
about $1 million if we do that. Housing allowance, car
ridiculous,
allowance,
yeah.
clothing allowance,
With
travel
that
allowance.
being said, they went and pulled someone from Texas like they did with Beverly Hall. They pulled her from
Jersey.
Jersey, who had all these issues prior to coming to Atlanta Public Schools.
right.
And yet this is the best that our money could get.
That's right.
I don't understand, but this is proving the point that you have to go along with get along. Our board members are bought. They have been for quite some time.
Yeah.
And because of that, they allow people like Beverly Hall, like Kostarfin, God knows who will be after her, to come in and take over and not even put forth the correct policies to take care of our children.
That's
There once
right.
was a time, and I think this was when we first met, the echo, or maybe it was when I was in high school, I can't remember, but the thing was children first. That was the moral, or the, what's the word you want to use?
So like the mission.
The mission
vision, yeah.
for Atlanta Public Schools, but I haven't seen that since. I didn't see it then, and it just goes to show each and every day when Shawnna and I were in the fight when they were closing all of the schools. what benefit was this doing?
Exactly.
Are you telling me that this is going to benefit the community? Now you have children standing out at 5 o'clock in the morning waiting for a bus because they got to be bused to the other side of the world. I mean, it's just, and I don't want to take from you here, but it's an unfortunate thing. And I'm so glad that I actually came at the wrong time today.
So good.
Because it's an unfortunate thing that so many people sleep on the purpose and the ability of the public school, all because of school of choice, charter schools and private schools. And I don't know any charter school or private school that can outdo a public school when the public school is given the correct resources that they need.
Well, that's the key. So this coming Monday, which is very interesting for Atlanta Public Schools, they're going to vote in the first equity policy that existed. Now, why do we have an equity policy? Go back to me being in 13 different schools. First, I used to think that was a curse. Then I realized it was a blessing. When Errol Davis was here and I went to him and he said, oh, Shawnna, the reason why the parents on the south side of town, well, the schools on the south side of town as compared to the schools on the north side of town, is because of the parents. I said, well,
always the answer.
Okay, right. So, after I beat him up on that pretty darn good, and then I gave him a scenario and I said, let's look at this here. And so what you're saying, basically, the white students are doing better than the black students. 'Cause that's what you're saying, right? And I said, so let's look at this here. So we're not going to even go back to desegregation, all the things that happened in this city of Atlanta that's supposed to be too busy to love, too busy to hate, but also too busy to love. They've been way too busy to love. And status quo has been okay. But if you stand up there and you have two people at the beginning of a race, one has the latest aerodynamic, the best shoes, the best everything on, and the crowd is like cheering, yay, and they're just ready. And you got somebody standing next to them, cut off jeans, barefoot, chains around their neck. And not only is the crowd not cheering, they're jeering and throwing bottles. So you tell me who's going to get to the finish line first. Okay? So I'm not impressed that somebody in Buckhead has a higher GPA or a higher proficiency level than somebody coming from Kimberly Elementary School or Thomasville Heights Elementary School when those schools have been totally disinvested. And so the equity policy is saying now, this is what it's saying. So I went to Errol Davis. I said, do one thing. I took one white person with me because you want to show balance, right? But she also talked about the same thing because she was from the Grady cluster. So she saw the black children pressed against the window saying, wait a minute. We in the same school.
We're here. Yeah, we're here.
And we still can't get what this part of the school is getting.
Yes.
And so what we asked him for, Errol Davis, please do an equity audit. He said, okay, when I'm walking out the door, I won't give you an equity audit. He did his next speech on his Tale of Two Cities.
Oh.
Okay. Because then he realized, after getting beat down by me, that it wasn't just the parents that made the difference. It was also resources.
Absolutely.
Resources that we saw, playgrounds. Some schools didn't have, elementary schools didn't even have a playground.
Not at all.
Some middle schools didn't have science labs. Okay, this basically is that. The computers at some schools that had just built on SPLOST dollars didn't even have updated computers, but another school on this side of town the same year got updated computers. Nobody noticed that but me. I'm like, wait a minute. Why is this so? Why isn't Sylvan Hills been touched in 62 years? And the Grady cluster now, they got 3 and 4 SPLOST that we spent in that particular cluster. This school hadn't been touched in 62 years. That was advocacy that I came to the table with. Because that's how you have to do it. You have to fight for that. Because if you expect somebody to give it to you, you'll be waiting a long time. So now we're going to do an equity policy on Monday. What does that really mean to us? We don't really even know because they haven't articulated what that means. They're already doing a strategic plan. They're already doing the budget. So how is the equity policy going to impact the strategic plan in the budget? So, we'll have a nice policy to put on the shelves, like we have a whole lot of other things on the shelves. But until you show me the money, show me what you're going to do, show me the plan of action that you're going to meet the needs of these students so that it is equitable and not equal, but equitable.
Right.
Equitable, meaning give those what they need to be successful. And, and so until we do those types of things, the Atlanta Public Schools will not be able to do what it's supposed to do, which is educate children, because education is supposed to be the great equalizer. You can't tell me, I heard a board member and a superintendent say when they were looking at the test scores, that school, well, no wonder, that's a poverty school. This is what the superintendent and a board member said. At this school system.
Yeah.
I want to talk about an issue that relates to all of this that I have termed an invisible hand. And this invisible hand has to do with it's okay to have poverty. That's part of nature. That the poor don't deserve it because they're not fighting up for it. That if you can achieve, if you can achieve your goals, then you go ahead and do them, and then we'll give you the money. But if you don't achieve, then you don't get it. And so I think it's the Shapiro report. Did a report that in Atlanta City schools, Atlanta City itself, this was 2015. There are 5 generations of kids that have been born into poverty, they have grown into poverty, and they will be in poverty. That poverty will carry them to the next generation, and it will increase and expand.
And how much has education been a part of that, right?
Correct.
Right.
So the point being is that if we don't attack income inequality, if we don't attack education inequality, legislative inequality, and use this huge umbrella to say to lobbyists who have a desire to cut and slice, and with this excellent schools, I'll let you explain it, the excellent schools model, where they put a whole cluster of schools together, and after so many years, if that school does not perform, they just cut it out of the portfolio. And the kids can go other places. They can, the school will be given to a charter, blah, 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 blah. But they will not be in the communities that they really need to be in it and for them to grow.
That's right.
So our new mantra is improve schools. Improve the schools. And make them excellent.
That's right. And
So,
you
there you
know,
go.
when you talk about the income inequality, and some of the bad parts about that is that they use Fulton County for the AMI. Atlanta's even worse than Fulton County is.
Yes.
So it's very difficult. So we're using an AMI. That's the average medium. That's the average medium income for those who may not know. They use that to determine housing and those types of things. Most people in the city of Atlanta are spending about 50 to 60% of their living expenses on housing because
That's right.
there's no income equality in the city and not affordable housing. And so what they say is the average black person makes about $29,000 a year, right? And the average white person in the city of Atlanta makes about $89,000 a year. That's a $50,000 gap.
Well said. Well
Okay,
said.
and we're using the Fulton County AMI, so that makes it even worse. And so when we look at that, when we look at how schools were placed during desegregation or integration, if we want to call it, because I have a whole lot of issues, we're about to have a whole nother show on that.
You
one.
and me both.
They dropped schools and project housing. They dropped schools, so we had a whole bunch of schools on our side of town, right? The quality, some of the quality teachers with experience left that side of town when they could, through integration and through the M&M the M2M program, the minority majority program. A lot of those programs are what hurt our community.
That's right.
It didn't help our community.
That's right.
It dispersed our community, and it left those who couldn't
Took
get
us
out.
from us.
The ones left in the community,
Yes.
right?
That's
the
right.
ones who couldn't get out. And so those were the children. So under Dr. Hall, she closed 27 schools. Errol Davis closed 13 schools. Now, what Dr. Kastarfin is trying to do, now she's closed a few schools. She's closed Adamsville and a few other schools. But what she's tried to do is to use a new technique and a new strategy called charter operator schools. So what they've done is they've given 7 schools that are in Atlanta Public Schools, almost the whole entire Carver cluster, away to purpose-built.
That's right.
Purpose-built after Drew. If you look at Drew and you look at what was supposed to happen over on the east side of Atlanta, what was supposed to happen was supposed to be some balance of it because East Atlanta had gone to a really low place, right? So it's like, okay, let's build it up, let's balance it. We're going to put this charter school over here that's going to take the children from the neighborhood and build it up. Now there are $1 million homes on Memorial Drive.
You know why?
That are right there.
Because they cut down 80% of Decatur in that area was black.
Yep.
They closed and cut down all of the housing.
All the housing projects. That's first.
Now
right?
there is 1 in 10 of those original people in Drew.
Yeah.
And doctors and lawyers are buying apartments along the side of the area just to get in because
And people
they're
are
in the
coming from
neighborhood.
across this town too,
Absolutely.
doctors and lawyers and stuff. And if you look at the Title I normally indicates what the income is of the parents of in the school. If you look at Drew from when it started to what it is now,
There you go.
It has when you go from the high school to the elementary school, you go from a couple of them here to now almost none by the time you get to elementary school. That is the shift of change. But what Drew said they were going to do is to change the trajectory for children's education, not come and change and have gentrification. Now can't nobody even afford to live over there. Okay.
Well,
that's-
you know, who built it?
And they have to
Cousins.
bus their children over there. There's
That's
no
their-
school bus.
I mean, you'd have
Yeah.
to be ignorant to
Well,
even think that that would happen.
But that's what the promise was, though, Reverend Diane, and that's the case. That's the case for me, is that they keep telling us that we're going to have income equality, we're going to have affordable housing on the Beltline, and we know Nathaniel Smith left and quit the Beltline because he said that you had not made true on your promise to this day.
To
we don't
this
have
day.
affordable housing.
To this day.
And so most of us are spending 60% of our income, and then so here we go back to the schools now. So all the schools on the north side of town have foundations attached to their schools, every single one of them. What does that mean? That means more money for them. Now, let's put a foundation over here at Therrell. Who's going to pay into that foundation? If you go to Eat Rivers, which is a school in the Buckhead area, and you look around it for miles, every direction you look in, other than the neighborhood, you see businesses.
That's correct.
Where is Kimberly next to? What's the closest business?
Not one.
The check cashing
one.
store,
Yeah.
the liquor store, those are the closest businesses to our community. So they're not reinvesting in the community. Parents aren't saying, like I went to Marathon Wings one time and I told them, we need some money for you to invest. All the students go here, they cut class to go here and get Marathon Wings.
Right.
And they were like, no, we're not going to. And I said, don't make me make this my mission. I will stand out here every day. You're going to invest in the school that's up the street that you're benefiting from. You're going to, or you're going to have a problem with me. So they did. But I had to go there, though. So it wasn't even in their head automatically to invest in the school. If you're on the Buckhead side, you'll see restaurants. You know, I support Inman Middle School. I support Eat Rivers. I support Sutton. This is Sutton Night. We're going to give proceeds. It's about the community, too, because the school is only as good as the communities and the
Yes.
parents that support it.
That's it.
Prime example would be the $155 million that Atlanta Public Schools put for North Atlanta.
200 million.
200 million.
Let me just make sure you know.
200 million to convert the old IBM building into North Atlanta High School. When there was nothing at all wrong with the building that they were previously in, but the board took 200 million.
Yep.
That's
Okay,
a
this is what my question
great
is.
example
Here's
of
my
how
question.
inequality is taking place in the school system.
But if you ask them, they'll say, well, no, we've spent more money on the South Side because we have 500 schools on the South Side. But they also don't say that over the millions of dollars of SPLOST dollars that the community votes on and goes from the taxes, we've spent $300 million on schools that have closed.
Absolutely.
Nobody talks about that.
Absolutely.
Talk about fiscal irresponsibility.
Because
Dear
now we're
Jesus
paying for
above heaven.
buildings.
So guess
that
what?
have
When they
nothing.
start coming to y'all for SPLOST 6, y'all better say, well, where's the accountability? Where's the analysis of what you've done with the money thus far? Because we're going to put this in the school and then you're going to close it.
Right.
And then it's going to sit over there on the side
That's all that's
for
happening.
nothing. And then you're going to wait
It's
for a
not
charter
nothing.
school.
It's
Then you're
not-
going to wait for
yeah.
a charter
There you
school.
go. That's
We
what I
just
was gonna
closed
say.
Krim, Alonzo Krim High School. Now, Alonzo Krim came online as a real traditional high school, quote unquote, right? It changed into an alternative high school
Yes, it did.
when that area Memorial Drive had gone down, right?
Yep.
So now, guess what? We're moving
Campus,
Krim
yeah.
out of there. Now, is that an accident or coincidence?
I don't
That's
think
the
so.
only the last APS school left in that area. And so now what? Because probably the gentrifiers don't want to see black teenagers, boys and girls who are in alternative school walk through their neighborhoods.
Here's my thing. I want to interrupt right here. I did a study of the kids in the APS school. There's 55,000 kids. 55,000 kids. 4,000 are white. 4,000 are white. What is going on? What is going on? I just am amazed.
Well,
The decisions that are being made are actually decisions that are not impacting in a positive way the African American community that belongs there. And how do we bring our own energies to support and to put our arms around these babies? They're our future.
what the problem has been is that schools, and I don't want to say every single, but most of them on the north side have become private public schools, right? So when Dr. Hall came in 1999, around 2001, she was looking around the district and saying, wait a minute now. It's a whole lot of people living in Buckhead, but they are not sending their children to Buckhead schools. APS public schools. They're sending their children to Lovett and Westminster and all these other schools. The children, we got almost 90% of the private schools in the city of Atlanta are on that side of town, right? So they were not sending. So Dr. Hall, in her great wisdom, decided, you know what? I'm going to have me a conversation with the Buckhead community and find out what it is I need to do to bring them back into the schools. So what she did do was the promise of a North Atlanta. We're overcrowded. What you going to do about that, Dr. Hall? Yeah. Well, you know what? In this many years, we're going to make sure we're building out high school for you all. Oh, well, you know, our children aren't learning. You know, we got to go with these No Child Left Behind children, blah, 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 blah. What you going to do? We're going to build you an IB.
That's it.
International Baccalaureate program.
Yep.
That only the rigorous can possibly go to. So people come out of private school just for the 11th and 12th grade of North Atlanta because that's the IB diploma program. Yeah. Right? And in that program, last year when my daughter graduated from that program, it was 150 students in that program. 20 of them, not 20%, 20 of them were people of color. That's every color combined. Okay? Every color that you can possibly have. Including Black, Latino. We have international students that are up there, you know, so they may be Black, but they're from France. Mm-hmm. Or they may be Black, but they're from Great Britain. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? And so 20 students in the IB diploma program, Black or color. 150 total students, so that's 130 that don't look like me and my children. And how can you do that when you have a school that's 30% Black, 30% Hispanic, 30% white, and 10% international? The numbers don't add up. The numbers just don't add up.
They never do.
And so when I started bringing that attention, they're like, oh, Lord, she didn't come from southwest side of town, trying to turn out North Atlanta. We are comfortable here. I mean, I'm telling you, I had battles there. And finally, we had to say, because when the cheating scandal came up, they were showing the data in the meeting, the PTA meeting, said, oh, our schools are doing great, and our schools are doing great. So I'm looking at the data, I'm like, So I raised my hand. I say, oh, wait a minute now. The white children are doing well, but if you go into the subgroups, the special needs children aren't really kicking butt.
Everything below our
The Black children who are free and reduced lunch aren't really going in there. Mm-hmm. So the Latino children who are free and reduced lunch or coming from the Chattahoochee part of the district aren't doing so great. So what data are you all looking at? Yeah. Because you're saying the white children are doing well. That's only a small percentage of the school anyway. So it's not, the issue is race. Okay.
And the issue is how do we look at it, and how do we support equity? Because by the time they get to high school, they should have that foundation underneath them. Stability. They need a stable place, a stable home, stable church, stable family.
So now, Reverend Diane, so who's responsible for that? Now, public school
Whose
system.
job is it?
Right. So that's so let me see if I can tell you what I believe whose job it is.
All right. This is so good, by the way. Thank you so much for coming.
Oh, you're very welcome. I do think it's a trifold. So I do think that that APS is responsible for educating children. You should be able to drop your child off at K, and by 12 they should be able to read, write, do basic arithmetic, regardless if you are the most involved parent in the world or never ever touched the school, ever didn't even know teacher's name. Okay, Amen. There should be some basic things there. The city of Atlanta is too busy trying to be in the business of Atlanta Public Schools and not in the business of economic development. The Atlanta Workforce Development Agency is a great example of that because it is a joke. You can't even get a job walking a dog from that agency. That should be what it is. Then we need to look to Fulton County. Fulton County can provide health services. They can provide those type of medical services. They can provide mental health services. They can provide counselors. They can provide the wraparound services that the school system may not always have enough money to do. So it's everybody's job. Whose job it is? Everybody's job. Everybody. Legislators need to be down there fighting for legislation that works for regular folks. Fulton County better make sure that the allocation is going to those who need it most. Why are we closing healthcare facilities instead of building up healthcare facilities? Okay.
Amen.
City of Atlanta, the mayor and the city council have to develop jobs. They can't just say gentrify, bring people in so they can walk around the belt line, but then no black person have a job except sweeping up the belt line.
There you go.
So that's a problem right there. So what is their responsibility to that? We're talking about the mayor. 42 years of black leadership in this city hasn't yielded us anything. We have more of an income divide than
I don't know. I don't think that's really true. I think that there's an element of African American people that are coming back to Atlanta that have achieved. One of the things that I
coming back or coming here,
coming back and coming here, but
that's two different.
What I really object to is that they're on a escalator going up, and I believe everybody has to see their escalator down. It is our job, our responsibility to take care. I mean, I'm white, but I see them as my children. Yeah. I think every child needs that opportunity, and we need to have the structure.
There's been no movement that has not been inclusive of all people. So, there's no movement. The civil rights movement wouldn't have worked without other folks.
That's right.
You know what I'm saying? The Me movement, the Me Too movement, whatever movement there has been, the liberation of women. Men helped us through that process. Civil rights, white people, Jews, and the clergy helped us through that process because they understood that this was not right, because injustice to some is injustice to all.
One of the things that people don't know, though, is what you have just shared on this program, and I hope a lot of listeners will continue to listen and play it over and over and over. Nobody understands what's happening with Atlanta Public Schools, because the narrative is that it is a broken system that needs to be replaced, and that is school choice.
Yes.
I was looking on, Mary Palmer, some of you know Mary Palmer. She gave me a website called Redefine Ed, and on that website it listed all of the organizations that are redefining education inside the city of Atlanta schools. That group are all privatized companies that want public money
all of a sudden won't care about the black children
to take over the schools. Well, I think that they will just eliminate, with this excellent schools model, just eliminate wave after wave. It'll be like a tidal wave coming through.
And it'll happen because people are saying, why don't you want excellence?
This is what's been happening in Atlanta Public Schools for quite some time.
Yes.
Our elected board members are not even true advocates for the city of Atlanta Public Schools.
No.
Well, there are
They're
three.
advocates, maybe three.
Maybe.
No, they are
Sometimes.
advocates for the businesses that are promoting them to promote people to go other areas.
Yes.
None. I don't even know one board member, honestly. This is just
really?
me. You can tell me more, but I don't know one who's really advocating
That's right.
for Atlanta Public
I'm gonna
Schools.
introduce you to
Please do, because I don't know. I can tell you one.
And that's one of the things we don't know.
I can tell you many of them have used Atlanta Public Schools as a stepping stone to get to the next level,
That's
which
right.
is a
That's
huge
right.
problem
That's
in
right.
the boards in the ABE. And the ones that are there now are. So there was a time, and I think Shawnna will agree with this. There was a time that the members that served on the Atlanta Board of Education were prior teachers,
Or parents, PTA members,
who were
leaders.
actually who were invested in the community.
Yes.
Community.
Now the people who are there are invested in the businesses
That's
that
right.
are using them to drive students
Correct.
and families
And the
away.
businesses get them
from
elected
absolutely
to do that.
every single time. The businesses are electing the people.
It's a
No-
misplacement.
Absolutely. So
Right.
if you do run and you have every intention to do the right thing, if you don't go along with the business, they're going to find somebody to replace you.
Yep.
Because
And I
they're
have a
going
great
to
example
funnel
of
the
that.
money to that candidate
Well
that
said.
they want there.
So I have a great example of that, just so you do know that what Joe is speaking about is the truth. So you kind of heard a little bit about me. So in 2013, finally people convinced me to run for the Board of Education. Reluctantly, I still had children in the school system, but I knew that this is where policies were being made, and that if I wanted to change something, at least on this local level,
Yeah.
we had to get folks on the Board of Education, even though they're one of 9.
Yeah.
I probably didn't spend $10,000 on my race, and all the money that I spent was given to me. I didn't ask anybody for any money. They were like, we want you to do. Most of my money came from previous board members, which was interesting. My opponent spent $76,000 on a local educational race in this small little community,
Atlanta
but her
Public
money
Schools.
came from Teach for America and the Blank Foundation, and those folks, Walton Foundation, those folks who are at the top of the list for privatizing schools and school choice. And so unfortunately, again, we go to our electorate because they get all these beautiful smile and this is a person and this I saw when they walked into the polls with the thing. The mayor hated me, so he sent out a slate. And people walked into the polls with their slates. I'm going to vote for. One lady said, "I'm going to vote for you. Are you on this slate?" I said, "I'm not on that slate, but you can still vote for me."
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's what happens. The Atlanta Metro. I sat on the EduPAC board. Just happened to get picked because I was a parent with a big mouth. And so they said, you know what, let's put her on this before I became this parent. So this was years ago. And what did the EduPAC board? The EduPAC board was a subsidiary of the Atlanta Metro Chamber of Commerce.
Oh.
That chose and funded board members, board candidates, right? So we always had these little tent cars at our table, and mine had Shawnna Hayes-Tavares, and just had parent. Everybody's from GE and everybody was from somewhere else, the Metro Chamber of Commerce. This is all business, except mine just had parent. And so they would talk about the school system, and I'd have to hold my tent up, and I'd say, "Oh, excuse me, school system, parent, not a business, not a business." And they funneled money behind candidates so that they would be in alignment with their policies. That's what Joe's talking about. So they buy and pay
day.
for board members and their little smiles and,
every
oh, we
4
love
years.
children. Oh,
Yep.
we used to be a teacher. I'm a Teach for America teacher. Oh, it's so special. But we know who's funneling, because guess what? You have to be held accountable to those people who are giving you money.
That's correct.
We know that in this country. So we can try to
They're
fake
gonna
like I
use
don't
you.
have their agenda. I'm not following their agenda. But if you look at somebody's disclosure form and you see all of this money, then you know why they're making the decisions that they're making.
Absolutely.
Why they're letting redefine ed come and determine ed don't have a dog in the school system. Okay, he was a teacher for America teacher who was the principal of Strive Elementary when it first started. That's all he's got. And now all of a sudden, because he's got money funneling, he was the one who funded the consultants for the excellence profile.
And I want to tell you that this started in California. I found it, Ed Blank was in California, and he brought all this here. They targeted cities in Atlanta.
10 cities.
10 cities. And what they want to do is they want to make a real estate deal out of this.
That's
That's
right.
how it goes.
That's right.
And they also that real estate deal will
APS is
mean that,
good
I mean,
for that.
if you look at large cities as they've grown and how civilizations have shifted and changed, they shift and change with those who have both money and power.
That's right.
But it does not have to be. You can resist. People can resist this. Knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power, Reverend Diane. And most folks don't feel that they have the knowledge, nor do they have the power.
They
We're
don't.
talking about people who, as to your point, 5 generations of poverty, who no longer can be lifted up by those type of things anymore. No longer can you say you have the power, your vote matters. That's why people don't vote. In this last election, a special election for Council City District 3, 1,500 folks voted. 1,500 folks voted. In the last special election for that District 2, with the educational district, 1,400 folks voted, and more of them voted for Sunday liquor sales than they voted for the Board of Education member. That says a lot to me. That says a lot.
You
to
said
me.
something earlier, which is absolutely true. Before we even came on the show, which is true in every aspect of our lives, especially for those who are unfortunately below the poverty line. Everybody, every parent that we're discussing, every child that we're discussing, is busy trying to survive.
That's right.
Yes.
And the unfortunate thing is, it's unfortunate, but because survival is the focus, the attention can't be on anything
That's right.
else.
That's right.
They can't. They have
And it's-
no time.
So
Our absentee
people like
fathers,
you make
know.
all the difference.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I will say, I can't thank you enough for always doing what you do. But I refuse, just like you, to remove my children from Atlanta Public Schools, despite what people think of
That's
it.
right.
I know what it did for me, and I know what it can do for my children and everybody else's children.
If done correctly. Over 90% of people come from the public school system.
Absolutely.
So we know we have the greatness out of public school
Absolutely.
systems. We can name them just in the city of Atlanta.
Yeah.
We can go all over this country, all over this world, and say these people came from the public school system. So we know that greatness. One of the things that the superintendent and board members told me, again, to that poverty piece, is that, well, Shawnna, what do you expect? These children are coming from poverty. And I said, let me tell you something about poverty, okay? I know poverty. I know it very well. Poverty is not my friend, but it's certainly been a close companion through the years, okay? Let me just say this about that. As Black people, we have overcome chattel slavery. We have overcome the Middle Passage. We have overcome Jim Crow, lynchings, civil rights movement, every movement to people getting shot in the streets by police. We have overcome. And you tell me today, we dug ditches and got in ditches with candlelight to teach children how to read. We built universities and colleges in this country. We built this country. And you tell me that today in 2019, little Black children, because their mama make less than $10,000 a year, can't learn how to read?
Absolutely.
Don't, please. You're not dealing with that kind.
Yeah.
Because I know my children, they don't know in their minds that they've been raised in poverty because they never had a poverty mentality.
Absolutely.
That's right.
But they were raised
That
in
there.
poverty.
That's the
okay.
key.
They didn't have electricity and water sometimes, but there was no excuse. We got on the bus, we got in the car, we went to the library because it stayed open. We found the ones that stayed open to 8 o'clock. Okay, I'm keeping it real. There was no excuse. There's no excuse. What has changed is not the fact that we have poverty or don't have poverty. What has changed is the value of education. What has changed is the leadership of the people.
Absolutely.
Because we elect these people, we hire them to lead us
Every
because
single
we
time.
are busy surviving. But we look back and we can't trust them.
One of
at
the
all.
issues is democracy. First of all, people don't understand it, and has also been impaled by corporate America.
Good word.
It's impaled. Democracy is being impaled.
Yes.
Another thing that happens when democracy is impaled is it creates poverty. Poverty is a construct.
It is.
Poverty is constructed. It is made by policies and systems that work against a people.
Because you don't always even know you're in poverty until somebody told you.
No.
We grew up in poverty. Nobody told us. We didn't know we were in poverty. We were like, really? We broke?
Nobody knew it.
Because grandma and them over here, we still having cookouts.
That was a hard reality for me when I got grown. I didn't know it. I said, what do you mean?
I know. But now they know because now with 5,000 channels, with social media, with pop culture, you know you broke now. And so that creates a whole level of mentality though. And because that divided the haves and have-not, the have-nots only going to have not for so long. Okay? Before they start spilling over, which is why the Buckhead community, all of a sudden, the mayors have town hall meetings because the Buckhead community said, wait a minute, we got all this crime up here, y'all.
So we coming for
because they said, we can't steal from our neighbor no more because he ain't got nothing either.
He ain't got nothing.
So we got to go somewhere where somebody got something. And guess where that is? The area of there. Okay? And, you know, I'm not saying that that's a good thing. I'm not. But when you create poverty and then you think that you can just live in your seclusion and not have to deal with it, it's going to rise to the head. And
I'm going to tell you what will alleviate poverty. If these companies would pay taxes.
Yeah.
There would be enough money to spread around. And this is not democratic socialism. This is common sense.
Yes.
Right now, we as a democratic people are supporting Walmart, so that they can have their. Well, this is a whole other show, but
because I don't go to Walmart.
Corporate. Well, you know, it's.
But I know
all my friends are there, so I have to
course.
Go. You know, if you live with people, and you know, we pay their food stamps. They get food stamps. They get health care for their kids. They get subsidies from.
I need to work at Walmart then, huh?
They do. They get all kinds of subsidies because when they apply, the management tells them how to apply for all those. The social safety net. They made $6.9 billion last year in profit.
And couldn't pay for child care and pay for health care.
Well, if you paid them a living wage, an honorable wage, and if the unionization has to come back.
Well, that's a whole other story. Unionization in the South. Oh, my God. What would that look like? Collective bargaining? Maybe schools wouldn't close and teachers wouldn't be thrown out. So the people who go to school to be educators are now thrown out like they don't matter. And people who went to school to be a businessman decided I want to go into the classroom for 2 years. Now they're a better teacher. Get out of here.
You didn't know it?
They stayed for 2 years, and before you realize they weren't any good, you realize, oh, Mom, they're gone now. Now they're on the Board of Education.
Absolutely.
Well, you know, one of the things that's happened, which luckily didn't, was House Bill 173, which was going to that was going to give vouchers to private and public schools, $100 million. That did not go through. But I think one of the things that was in it that really raised the hair on my back was they were going to put in, I forgot it. They were going to, I don't know, we'll talk because I can't remember it right now, but there was a whole list of things that were going to be in that bill that really scared me. So they went back to the original language.
One of the things that helps with
tabled it
is that it becomes a situation where the entire Georgia, rural Georgia, suburban Georgia, and urban Georgia decide that we don't want vouchers, we don't want OSD, we want local control. Those things help us a lot around that type of democracy in education, because some people will say, oh, well, the suburban or the rural folks, they're not going to vote with you because y'all are black, this, the urban thing. It's always some divide, right? But I was like, nobody wants to have somebody outside of their community control their schools. And what's happening with the charter schools is that's exactly what's happening. Because if you're coming to become a charter operator, so I'm coming to operate and be over you, I don't have to be from the community. I don't have to know the community. I don't have to care about the community. I'm just coming to operate this system over here, okay? And if you look at the data, they're not kicking butt either. And then they've spent a lot of money at Thomasville. They say, "Oh, the Thomasville scores."
Too much truth right now.
Oh,
you can't tell that truth around this. Nobody wants to hear that.
They don't want to hear.
Nobody
this
wants
is the
to
problem.
hear that charter schools aren't performing.
They're
like
not performing. And guess what? They don't take special education students.
Nope.
Okay.
Please.
Like
This is
MOID and real special.
Yes,
I mean, I'm talking. They may
yes.
take a few high level autistic children, some BD maybe.
Yeah.
They might have 5 or 6 black boys that
Cherry
may be a
picking.
problem.
That's it.
They say they don't do it. They say it's a lottery, but for some reason, Maddox Jones had 25% special education students, and the charter school closest to it, Kip Ways, had less than 10%. I don't know how that happened. Where they do that at? Okay.
going back to, I found this information about House Bill 68, and this is what we have to look out for because people didn't know that. Luckily, the language was taken out of the bill, but it would have eliminated public schools that help protect students. They didn't have to do EIPs. They didn't have to do accredited IEPs.
Yeah.
They didn't have to be accredited. They didn't have to have teachers that were certified.
Right.
And it goes on and on and on. So little by little, this movement is moving.
But that's what's
everything
happening in
down.
charter schools. They don't have to be accredited teachers, right?
Wow.
They can have.
No, I thought they did.
Oh no, ma'am.
Public schools.
Teach for America was put together to serve KIP, right? That was that marriage, right? And those people come out of undergraduate or masters. They're not certified. Some can get certification, but they're not certified,
And
right?
They get their certification after a number of years
Yes.
of being, but they don't have to have it right
Well,
off.
that's
Not
how I
right.
started.
Not
But
right
that's
off.
another.
Yeah,
that's
that's
another one. You know. But anyway, I can't thank you all enough. Thank you so much for being in this wonderful
Thank you.
conversation about something that is so dear to my heart. And I think that if we continue with the energy that you give us,
Yes.
and we push that energy back into you, we will be able to make a mark here in
Yes.
Atlanta Public Schools.
Yes.
So I'd like to
believe
thank you all.
Thank you so much for
Shawnna.
having me. Thank you for having me. Great conversation. I can talk about education all day and all night.
Autumn.
Yes.
I did it right.
Amber,
Joe
I
Flint.
thought. No.
Don't get confused. And thank you, Reverend
you.
Diane.
Yes.
Thank you.
You're listening to WCEG Talk Radio, and we have just completed a session with Shawnna
Hayes-Tavares.
Hayes-Tavares.
Shawnna Hayes-Tavares, and we are hoping that you'll tune in. We are going to continue this conversation in a few minutes, but after our break. So thank you all for coming.
Thank you. Thank you.